Meanwhile, J.D. Vance, while Archie is talking about a memorandum of understanding actually being close, which is important. This is new, right? Even then, it doesn't really matter, though, because once again, Israel might have a difference in opinion here. So regardless of how close the memorandum of understanding is to being finalized on the American side, on the Iranian side, have you forgot to ask the most important, the most pivotal side, Israel? Seems like you forgot to ask them for consent, which means deal's not finalized, like I said, until the ink is dried and the American troops, the American naval assets are moving in the opposite direction that they're moving in. I'll believe it when I see it. However, J.D. Vance strikes a very diplomatic tone and is clearly preparing a narrative on unfreezing of Iranian funds, which Trump has repeatedly claimed he would not do. And on other terms, he said, I'm seeing a lot of fake information about a potential deal to reopen the strait and end Iran's nuclear weapons program. First, the Iranians are not receiving any cash, and no funds are being released for simply signing a deal or attending a meeting. The deal is structured to ensure that the U.S. and its allies' concerns are prioritized. Ooh, this is good stuff. If you recall, there were teases upon teases throughout this process where Trump would signal to what he would want out of this deal and what he would be comfortable giving away. This was one of those things. He rarely ever mentioned the cash, the assets being unfrozen. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of paperwork, legalese, justifications that makes it seem as though we're not giving pallets of cash directly to Iran, which is one of the things that Trump railed on and even Joe Biden over. So we shall see. But obviously, no matter which way you cut it, it is still the same ordeal, right? I've noticed a couple of bizarre things in the reporting over the last few hours. First, people who rightly said Donald Trump was a historic president a month ago now criticizing a deal based on unconfirmed media reports. Second, people who say you can't trust a word said by the IRGC, who apparently believe anonymously sourced social media posts. The president is going to get us a good outcome one way or another. Yeah, the whiny groiper is back. These two almost simultaneous tweets should be read together in order to better understand what's going on. But is there someone you forgot to ask? The real president of the United States of America comes in, Benjamin Netanyahu. As long as I am Prime Minister of Israel, Iran will not have nuclear weapons. There is full agreement between me and the president, the fake president, President Trump, on this issue. For over 30 years, I have been at the forefront of the international campaign against Iran's nuclear program. Had it not been for this campaign, Iran would long ago have an atomic bomb to destroy Israel. Iran is working to destroy the Jewish state, and I dedicate my life to preventing them from doing so. As long as I'm Prime Minister of Israel, this will not happen. You know this is a Hebrew tweet, translated from Hebrew to English, because he talks about how Iran's goal, first and foremost, is to destroy Israel. And I feel like in the English-speaking world, if he were to release this, people would probably have a very different attitude on it. They'd be like, damn, I didn't know. God damn, bro. Big Yahoo, moving. Politico reports from 4 minutes ago, deal with Iran is near, but not final, senior U.S. official says. All right, these are good events. These are good events.
And Iran. So I'm going to read you the the True Social post that he has put out. He said this: the terms that Iran leaked out to the fake news have nothing to do with the terms that were agreed to in writing. What they said, including their weak and pathetic statement on having a deal, bears no relation to the truth. Very dishonorable people to deal with. With them, there is no such thing as dealing in good faith. Amazing. Also, their totally rebuffed drone attack last night against Indian ships leaving the Hormuz Strait is totally unacceptable. They better get their act together and fast. So remember, President Trump had previously called off strikes against Iran last night and said that there was this deal that was going to be signed imminently, perhaps even as early as this weekend. He was looking to dispatch the vice president, J.D. Vance, for some kind of a signing ceremony. We then got details from the Iranian media on what exactly this deal may entail. And it includes, I'm going to list them off for you, on the nuclear file, no new agreement regarding Iran's nuclear program. And Iran will not make any new commitments. They say that on the Strait of Hormuz, again, this is Iranian state media reporting, that they make no commitment to relinquish control over the Strait of Hormuz. When it comes to ending the war, they said that the U.S. committed to ending the Israeli regime's war in Lebanon. They calls for an end to the war. And when it comes to frozen assets, the Iranians are also saying that part of the funds that are being frozen will be released immediately. So there is a lot to sort out here as to what's what and where this leaves the status of the deal. But we are going to try to sort through all of this. I'm going to do a quick swap over. My colleague Imran Khan will be here in just about 2 minutes from now. Stay tuned.
After saying there was a deal, President Trump is now lashing out at Iran. In a Truth Social post that appeared just a few moments ago, he called Tehran, and I'm quoting him now, dishonorable for what he's calling inaccurate descriptions of a proposed agreement. He also said they better get their act together and they better do so fast. Let's go to CNN's Kristen Holmes over at the White House. Kristen, what else is the president saying this morning? It's all very dramatic.
Yeah, and we're going to get to what he's saying in a second, but I do want to explain how we got here and what it is that he is referring to, because we had gotten a readout of this memorandum of understanding from a diplomat who had been briefed on what was in this document, and some of the key points were this: that it would be a 60-day ceasefire that would include everything, Lebanon included, that the Strait of Hormuz would be opened immediately, and that pre-war levels of traffic would begin again within 30 days, that the U.S. blockade of ports and some Iranian sanctions would all open up as part of this deal, and that it satisfies all the U.S. requirements on the nuclear issue. So that is what we had been reporting. Then we had Iran come out, state media, and give their version of the deal, which looks significantly different. And there are a couple of points in there that are likely to make President Trump angry. One of them, they would not commit to ceding control over the Strait of Hormuz. And the other is that frozen funds, these frozen assets that have been a point of contention for President Trump, they say, Iranian state media, and of course, keep in mind the source here, that the agreement would demand the release of $24 billion in those frozen funds. So now you have President Trump reacting to this, essentially saying that the terms that Iran leaked to the fake news media have nothing to do with the terms that were agreed to in writing. What they said, including their weak, pathetic statement on having a deal, bears no relation to the truth. And with them, there is no such thing as dealing in good faith. I assume what he's talking about when he talks about their weak and pathetic statement on the deal is the fact that we had heard that the response to the deal, or the response to President Trump, was that the text still requires review and finalization. They have been saying that it has not been signed off on. President Trump, of course, saying that everybody was in agreement. So that is what is happening now. And again, we've been down this path before. President Trump says a deal is imminent, and then we see a situation like this where one of the sides starts to backpedal and it all falls through. So we'll see what's going to happen now. U.S. officials are still cautiously optimistic.
We shall see. All right, Kristen Holmes over at the White House for us. Thank you very much.
All right, well, let's continue this conversation with CNN political and global affairs analyst Barak
Oh,
Levine,
hell
who's
yeah.
also the global affairs correspondent.
Hell yeah. Barak, Unit 8200, Ravid. Very good. Very, very good. Deal is imminent, as I have said 39 times. It is not because of market close. Once again, Donald Trump is ending wars. What is this? You're washed, bro? 46,000 people are watching this. Oh my God. Liberalism, man. Liberalism. No deal is coming. They're just going to attack Iran this weekend. Another smokescreen. Who knows?
For Axios. What do you make of this development with President Trump going from they've reached a great settlement to now saying Iran needs to get its act together because of what the state media there is reporting, which is different from what the U.S. has said?
Yes, I think what the U.S. has been told by the Qatari mediators and the Pakistani mediators and the Iranian negotiators themselves yesterday was that they're basically ready to sign. That was the message that the White House got. And preparation started for a possible signing ceremony during the weekend. For example, 4 U.S. Air Force C-17 planes left Washington yesterday to Europe as an advance for a possible trip by Vice President Vance to Geneva to sign this agreement with the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf. But I think what happened in the recent hours is what happened several times during those negotiations, that every time when the parties were close to a deal, each side wanted to market the deal to its own domestic audience. And when you do that, then each side obviously, gives the deal its own spin, emphasizes the things that it's going to get and downplays the things that it's going to give. And I think that's, again, what happened today when the Iranian presented their narrative or their spin on what has been agreed, and President Trump pushed back and presented him and White House officials presented their narrative about what has been agreed. And I think it's not totally different, but I think each side just emphasizes what it is getting from a deal and not really talking about what it is giving in this deal.
Because Barack, when I woke up this
Trump lies that before he came around, you had to go to Japan to get Maine lobster.
But you have never had. And again, in Maine, I opened it up. You know who was fishing there? Canada. Japan was fishing there. Maine lobster. You couldn't get a Maine lobster. You had to go to Japan to get a Maine lobster. You believe it?
True. True fact stated, man. Yeah. Famously, not a lot of lobsters in Maine. Not a lot of Maine lobsters in Maine. Primarily in Japan. That's where the Maine lobsters are.